Members of the House, please be seated.
Will the House come to order? Mr. Clerk.
Aloha and good morning. Today's invocation will be delivered by Representative Lynn DeCoit. Will the members who wish to participate please rise?
Please sit. Thank you. So, of course, good morning, everyone. Today, I would like to give thanks. I would like to say thank you for the good, the bad, and yes, the ugly. If you don't fit in those categories, let me know, and I'll find a category for you later. Thank you, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, who sacrificed for all of us. Thank you to the men and women who have served our country, past, present, and future, and the sacrifices they have made so that we may enjoy the freedom that we have. Thank you to my office manager, Rebecca Kroll, and my legislative staffer, Richard Orshiro, for putting up with me these past years, more so the past days. Thank you to my friends and my family, my mom and dad, my husband Russell, my children Carrie, RJ, Dylan, and grandchildren Kennedy and Manuel. Today for me is about being thankful. I'm thankful for the many ups and downs in my life. What hasn't killed me has only made me stronger. My dad was always about tough love. You want something, get out there and work for it. Don't expect it to fall in your lap. Work hard, play hard. Treat people like how you would want to be treated. I want to also say thank you to Eric, the 6-year-old boy that called my office to say, do the right thing. This is not a me and an I. This is an us all working together. I'd like to leave you with an Itoism ideology. If you don't talk to people, people may think you stupid. But when you open your mouth, they're gonna know you stupid. Let's all work together and live like you would want to be remembered. Aloha.
Thank you, Representative DeCoit. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Aquino, Ms. Bellotti, Mr. Bronco, Mr. Cullen, Ms. DeCoit, Ms. Eli, Mr. Ganaden, Mr. Gates, Ms. Har,
Present.
Mr. Hashem, Mr. Hashimoto, Mr. Holt, Ms. Ichiyama, Mr. Iligan, Mr. Johansson, Ms. Capella, Ms. Kitagawa, Mr. Bertrand Kobayashi, Mr. Dale Kobayashi, Mr. Kong, Mr. Lopresti, Ms. Lowen, Ms. Luke, Ms. Martin, Mr. Matayoshi, Ms. Matsumoto, Mr. McDermott, Mr. McKelvey, Mr. Mizuno, Ms. Morikawa, Ms. Nakamura, Mr. Nakashima, Mr. Nishimoto, Mr. Ono, Ms. Okimoto, Mr. Onishi, Ms. Peruso, Mr. Quinlan, Mr. Sayama, Mr. Takayama, Mr. Takumi, Mr. Tam, Mr. Tarnas, Mr. Todd, Mr. Tokioka, Mr. Ward, Ms. Wildberger, Mr. Woodson, Mr. Yamane, Mr. Yamashita, Mr. Speaker.
Present.
Mr. Speaker, all 51 members are present.
Item 2, reading of the Journal, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, may this matter be deferred.
So ordered. Item 3, Mr. Clerk, are there any messages from the Governor?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we're in receipt of Governor's Message number 1110, informing the House that House Bill number 189 was signed into law on April 26, 2021, and designated as Act 10. May this matter be received and filed.
So ordered. Item 4, Mr. Clerk, are there any Senate communications?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we are in receipt of a communication informing the House that the Senate has reconsidered action in disagreeing to the amendments proposed by the House, has moved to agree and pass the noted Senate bills on final reading. We are in further receipt of communications informing the House that the Senate has reconsidered action in disagreeing to the amendments proposed by the House, has moved to agree and adopted the noted Senate concurrent resolutions.
All right, members, we will be taking some items out of order. So the first is on page 38. Conference Committee Report number 160. This is House Bill 613. We have a floor amendment for consideration. It's floor amendment number 2. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the Conference Committee Report number 160 as listed on page 38 and that the accompanying House bill as amended pass final reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Representative Woodson.
Mr. Speaker, I have a floor amendment to offer.
Mr. Clerk, have copies of the floor amendment been distributed to the members?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, copies of floor amendment number 2 have been distributed.
Representative Woodson.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the floor amendment.
Representative Capella.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to adopt floor amendment number 2. Is there any discussion? Representative Woodson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The first friendly floor amendment I have to offer is found on page 14 under section 3 in paragraph 14, and it simply provides more flexibility for the conflicts area superintendents to offer this particular greenhouse pilot program. This program is important because it allows for interdisciplinary learning environments to transpire, which is important for not only increased learning outcomes, but long-term hard and soft skills that will be earned throughout the course of their instruction. The second is also found on page 14 under paragraph 13, which is again under section 3, and it simply adds half-time teachers to make sure that we include full-time and half-time teachers. Thank you.
All right, is there further discussion? If not, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor of adopting the floor amendment, say aye. All opposed say no. The floor amendment number 2 is adopted. All right, members, we'll be taking another item. I'm sorry, we're back on page 1. Conference Committee Report number 180, House Bill number 200. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt Conference Committee Report number 1.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second.
Okay, we'll take a recess, members.
Oh, shucks.
Recess subject to call of the chair. Great, will the House come to order? Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules of the House in order to consider certain House and Senate bills for final reading by consent calendar.
Representative Matsumoto.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. Members, we're on page 1. This is Conference Committee Report 180, House Bill number 200. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt Conference Committee Report number 180 as listed on page 1 and that House Bill number 200, House Draft 1, Senate Draft 1, Conference Draft 1 as amended pass final reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Is there any discussion, members?
Miss-
Can we take a recess subject to the call of the chair? Recess. All right, will the House come to order, members? We're still on CCR number 180. Representative Ward.
Speaker, could I call a short recess, please?
Yes, recess subject to call of the chair. Will the House come to order? Members, we're back on CCR 180, Representative Ward.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to withdraw my floor amendment, but I'd like to give the reason. I'd like to give my speech, if I may. Or should I speak when the debate is called for the SB 200?
No, if you're withdrawing it, there's no debate on it.
Well, we are going to debate the budget, though, right?
You can debate this on the when we take up HB 200 for the final reading vote.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, members, we're on HB 200. Is there any discussion? Representative Luke.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to speak in favor of House Bill 200, House Draft 1, Senate Draft 1,
Please proceed.
CD 1, relating to the state budget. If I could have a moment to look at my notes. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, this budget is 7% less than the governor's budget in fiscal year 22 and 6% less in fiscal year 23 in general funds. We achieved this through reduction of vacant position, combing through each department budget to reduce expenses such as equipment, lease rent, and office expenses, and of course, deployment of the federal funds. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to thank the Finance Committee and my staff. Because of the truncated schedule this year, many of the members, including the staff, had to work long hours, weekends, and a lot of time and resources spent to putting this budget together. And if it wasn't for every single one of the finance staff, this would not be a reality today. And I can't express enough how thankful I am for each and every one of them. I also wanted to thank not just the finance members, but every finance members who spent a lot of time on many of the bills. Being the finance designee, they have no idea how grateful I am to each and every one of them, and that makes my job so much easier for them to be the fin designee on all the bills that we are about to vote on today. So my heartfelt gratitude goes out to every single one of them. And thank you to the chairs. The chairs rose up to the challenges this year, and in spite of many challenges this year, they did a tremendous amount of work, tremendous amount of time and resources went into everything that they did to take care of the needs of our community. So thank you to the chairs and every single one of the members here. The fact that you continue to come and work for the people of Hawaii, I think only we understand how much time that you folks put in, how much sacrifice you put in. So my heartfelt gratitude goes out to every single one of you, and especially you, Speaker. Many times the Speaker is the last to take credit and the first to take the blame, and we know that. So our appreciation goes out to you, Speaker. I know you're getting a little teary-eyed right now, but it's okay. You can let your emotions out once in a while. Thank you to somebody laughed out loud. Yeah. You can strike that portion from my speech if you want. Gratitude goes out to Chair Donovan Dela Cruz, because he's in the other chamber. I think I can mention him by name, and he should be mentioned by name. Throughout working with him as WAM chair, in spite of what some people may think, and in spite of what might be a perceived reputation, he is a generous individual, and he is kind, and he is very easy to work with and accommodating to the many needs of both the House and the Senate. Gratitude also goes out to his staff. They work so hard, and we saw the challenges of them having even shorter time, because both the House and the Senate leadership allowed the House to extend the time for us to pass the budget to the Senate. The Senate had even a shorter period of time to work on their budget. And so we understand that, they were under a tremendous amount of pressure to get the budget done in time. And I think those kind of nuances, individuals would not understand, but.
Mr. Speaker, waive my time.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Those are the things that people would take for granted, but I understand that it was a lot of pressure on every single one of the staff for trying to get this budget out. And to the WAM members as well, for them being the support and the individuals who back the WAM chair and many of the things that we are doing today. And I would like to thank the governor and his departments for working diligently with us. Many times, we would have a long discussion on some of the budget items, and it would be Budget and Finance and the Attorney General's office. And sometimes we don't agree, but we somehow work it out where we come to an agreement and we are able to deliver this budget with most of the things that they were interested in as well. My gratitude goes out to the CIP chair who worked with the CIP chair on the Senate side to have a very responsible CIP budget, along with the task of using some of the infrastructure federal funds that have been allocated. So my heartfelt gratitude goes out to the CIP sub-chair. And of course, last but not least, my vice chair, he has no idea how greatly appreciative we are, and I am, of him, and he takes away some of the stress and many of the burden from me, and he is quiet but effective, and he provides all the support and many times the judgment and opinion that sometimes I could lack. So I depend on him as my confidant and my rock. So thank you to the vice chair. When the legislature first received the governor's budget back in December, it became quickly evident that the budget included many devastating cuts to social service programs. I think many in this body was very disturbed about the cuts to HIV services, to sex assault services, and others. We made a commitment early on that first and foremost, we needed to restore those programs. With the members' help, this budget restores and funds over $80 million in social service programs. And because it's important, let me just read those. This is a restoration and funding for sex assault treatment services, rent supplement program for low-income families, restoration of general assistance to the current level of about $360 as opposed to $250, $14.3 million for homeless services, including store properties and debris removal service, which was not included in the initial governor's budget, cash support for childcare, perinatal and family planning, and in fact, we provided $1 million more than what was requested or what was in the budget for family planning. HIV prevention and care services, tuberculosis prevention, restoration of office language access, which provides interpretive services for immigrant populations, support for senior centers, re-entry program for inmates, Hep C treatment for inmates, Hilo Youth Challenge, Child Protective Service personnel, developmental disability programs, crime victim compensation, and of course, domestic violence support through the judiciary budget. The people who depend on these programs are not the ones who send email blasts to our offices or hold rallies, but we are all that they have. And it is our job and our duty to recognize and protect the most vulnerable. While other states have already recovered economically, all forecasts lead us to believe that economic recovery will not occur for Hawaii prior to 2024. This means that balancing this year's budget is not enough, and we need to restructure government services for efficiency and service to achieve cost savings. This budget...
Representative Nakamura.
I yield my time to the Speaker.
Thank you, Housing Chair. This budget includes a framework for consolidation of OP, LUC, OEQC into a new division called the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. And isn't that what we're here about, for sustainable development? So my heartfelt gratitude goes out to the Waterland Chair and EEP Chair for working on this project. Sometimes, making these kind of structural changes is not easy, and for them to have achieved this is really a recognition of them and their personality and their ability to work on a significant task like this. This budget also consolidates 2 workforce divisions. Before today, there were 2 workforce divisions in Department of Labor, and I would like to thank the Labor Chair for helping us consolidate them so that they can provide efficiency and service. And also elimination of Office of Aerospace and redeploying the most important part, which is Pisces, to University of Hawaii Hilo. And I wanted to thank the representative from Waikiki and representative from Kailua, and also the Economic Development Chair for helping us through the move of Pisces and the Challenger Center to DOE. Many decades ago, some of you might know, maybe the Labor Chair might know, but there were close to 100 dairies in our state, and that's so shocking. That's why Milk Control Special Fund was created, to regulate the dairies and help set price to benefit Hawaii consumers. Today, we have 1 dairy, and the program of Milk Control Special Fund is not sustainable from the fees from just 1 dairy. Just because a special fund served a certain purpose before, that doesn't mean we continue it for the sake of continuing it. Why am I mentioning Milk Control Special Fund? Because along with Milk Control Special Fund, we have looked at many special funds, and this budget eliminates this and many others and convert them to general funds so that we can reevaluate some of the use of these special funds and reevaluate its function. Just like the Milk Control Special Fund, it may have been good many decades ago when we had close to 100 dairies. It's no longer viable when we only have one dairy. This year, we have instituted a new practice of putting a 5-year sunset on any new special funds created so that the legislature will continue to have oversight for these special funds. This year, there has been much discussion about ADC and HTA. This budget, with the help of both the Agriculture Chair and the Labor and Tourism Chair, eliminate the special funds for both so that we have more accountability and more transparency of both ADC and HTD. Through this budget, we made a lot of progress, and we didn't let COVID stand in our way. I thank you again to each and every one of you for your service to the people of Hawaii and for allowing this budget to pass. Thank you.
Right, is there further discussion, members? Representative Wildberger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong support, I would like to
Please.
express my appreciation to our esteemed finance chair and rep from Pacific Heights. The work that she led has created a lot of accountability and transparency in what our tax dollars are doing here in government. And I just wanted to share my appreciation for her and her team for the good work that prevented mass layoffs or furloughs in this budget. And just want to share my appreciation. Mahalo.
Representative Holt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, in support.
Please proceed.
This budget has a lot of great things in it, and I'd like to especially thank the Finance Chair and the CIP Chair. And I think it's important that we highlight that this year, the Department of Hawaiian Homelands has received probably the highest amount, at least in recent years, probably forever, so appreciation for that, about $70 million in the next couple years. And also, there was money in the budget to start removing the Hokulea telescope from Mauna Kea, and I think it's a great first step for us to show good faith that we are upholding our end of the bargain. So thank you guys in support.
Representative Ward.
Speaker, I too am in support of this and commend two things for the Finance Chair. One is the balanced budget makes us look good. The fact that it balances is great. And one is the breath of fresh air is the special funds for the first time in the history that at least I know in this body, that we've swept the special funds and put it into the general funds, which means that we're actually in the business of taking care of the purse strings. However, having said that, Mr. Speaker, there's a couple of things that I would draw an issue with, and I guess the amendment was maybe too much of a making of an issue out of it, but there's something in the budget that I think needs to be pointed out. And that is, there's a line item in the DOE that says, we are going to give pay raises to the complex area superintendents. Mr. Speaker, I've got 3 issues with that. Number one, these are the guys that make $145,000 to $175,000 per year. The optics of that do not look good at all. If anybody needs a raise, it's the teachers in the DOE, not the district area superintendents. And thirdly, Mr. Speaker, even though we've balanced the budget, we have a bare cupboard. The coffers are bare. EUTF funds are now at 4.1 unfunded liabilities. We've got an economy that's not open. We've got 70,000 people who are still unemployed. Mr. Speaker, we're not in good fiscal shape. We are now temporarily in good shape, but in the long run, we're not. So the fact that we are not leveling the pay raise increase field, if you will, the executive has agreed, the judiciary has agreed, the unions have agreed, no one gets a pay raise, except now the superintendent complex area guys get it. That's inconsistent. I wanted to point that out. And because we project with our budget what our priorities are, I don't think giving a pay raise to people who are making $145,000 to $175,000 really says where our heart and where our care is, particularly for our teachers. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, it's a good budget, but that thing in it is not a good item. Thank you.
Representative Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, in support. I just wanted to respond to what the representative from Hawaii Kai stated. I encourage him to read not just this bill, but every bill, And we asked that, if he does not read all the bills, if he can get assistance from his staff. Because in House Bill 613, thanks to the vision of education chair in both the House and the Senate, they put in language that any pay raise increase for all superintendents, which encompasses all deputy superintendents, granted by the Board of Education shall only take effect when department heads receive their pay raises. So because this was a floor amendment, the Hawaii Kai representative had ample opportunity to read the floor amendment as well, which was encompassed in the education chair. So if I could ask that the Hawaii Kai representative withdraw his statements for inaccuracy. Thank you.
Representative Ward.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know if it was the mask or my understanding. Are we to suggest then that what the good representative...
Representative Ward, are you still in opposition?
Yeah, still in support, but a bit querying or questioning. Are we to understand then that these people will not be given raises until whenever, quote, the department heads get a raise? And that is undefined. In our budget for the judiciary and the executive and the legislative, it's for all of those who are the leaders, not the departments, or unless you mean the departments of all the executive. I was not clear on what she was meaning, but if that's the case, it's even a better reason for withdrawing the amendment, because it's in there. However, the difficulty of reading a 220-page budget, as I read, I thought it was buried in some place, but I never saw it, and the next time I will query the chair directly. Thank you, Speaker.
All right, members, is there further discussion on HB 200? Representative Cullen.
Mr. Speaker, strong support.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to express my gratitude not only to the finance and WAM staff, seeing how hard they have worked over the past several weeks in order for us to get a balanced budget that is very responsible at this time. Applaud leadership upon the finance chair and WAM chair. They did a really great job in balancing the federal funds that came down with what we needed. And one area I want to talk about, even though it's real small, that Hawaii can look forward to is, and we always talk about food security in the state, we always talk about food security nationally and globally. And a big program that we have within the Department of Agriculture is actually the Queen Bee program. Hawaii, even though as small as we are, exports percentage-wise one of the largest I say, in supplying North America, both continental US and Canada. So when we look to how we expand new programs and how we look at global and food security, and you tie in keywords like sustainability, this small program that was actually the certification program that was still funded, but this additional funding will allow Hawaii to be that leading nation in the exporting of bees, which at this time I feel is very important, knowing that we are moving towards goals and food security goals and sustainability that was very, very exacerbated during this COVID-19 pandemic. Also, I wanted to respond to the representative from Hawaii Kai. If you read page 15, section 4, and it clarifies that recent salary recommendations by the Commission on Salaries. So when the only individuals that have a recommendation by the Salary Commission is the legislature, the executive, and the judicial, which is judges and the department heads. So there is the clarification. Thank you, Speaker.
Representative Woodson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Strong support.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I also wanted to thank the finance chair, the vice chair, and the sub chair for the work they did on the budget, including as it relates to the Department of Education. It's no easy task to make sure that we go ahead and reinsert all the positions that we thought we were going to lose. So we're very grateful for that. And also, just to respond to the gentleman from Hawaii Kai, also in the complementing bill, HB 613, we did in fact give teachers a one-time bonus of $2,200. Thank you.
Representative Iligan.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a newly elected freshman into this body, I'm very grateful to our finance chair because there was a lot of things I had to learn. And she also helped guided me through the budget, as well as all my fellow finance members. And her leadership is greatly appreciated through these tough times. I really am also very appreciative of the fact that she helped restore the Youth Challenge program. And these are kids who, at-promise kids, who really needed the help. And so I really appreciate it because it was during the time where the administration was looking to cut the program. And here we are now. And I'm very thankful for what she has done, as well as I am very thankful for WAM as well, with Senator Dela Cruz on his side of the chamber. As we all know that it takes two chambers to get it through this body. And I also want to say thank you to my fellow Hilo representative who mentored me through this process as well. And as well as the rep in Nuuanu who also helped me through some budget things. Thank you.
All right, is there further discussion? Representative Burt Kobayashi,
Mr. Speaker, Horizon's strong support.
please proceed.
Thank you. This year and this budget was unlike any other, and hopefully not to be repeated. We started the session with ourselves in a hole, which was far above our heads. And we now find ourselves, I think, still in a hole. Although the hole now is perhaps waist high and we could perhaps easily climb out of it. But we're still in a hole. This budget was possible only because of a one-time only American Rescue Plan giving the state $1.6 billion. Those funds will not be available next year in all likelihood. And so getting out of the hole will have to be done by ourselves. But we face a daunting future. Our revenues, our cash reserves, I should say, are low. 2 years ago, we ended up with a carryover balance of $999 million, virtually a few $1,000s away from $1 billion. We have had that kind of carryover balance since I re-entered this place, beginning 2013. This year, we will not have anything near that. So one of the things that this budget did was, for the first time ever, insert legislative add-ons of 9 digits more than several times. That is 9 digits to repay $700 million for a UI loan, $390 million for EUTF, Employees Union Trust Fund for Health Insurance, and also $250 million going to the Rainy Day Fund. That will help us in future years because, as you know, we have bleak prospects for future state revenues. And I think that Finance Chair and Finance staff should be commended for looking out not only for this year's budget, but for future budgets, because as I said, we are not out of the hole yet. Thank you.
All right, is there further discussion? If not, we'll take the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, on the measure before us, all majority members vote aye.
Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the measure before us, all minority members vote aye.
Are there any remote votes? Members, have all votes been cast? If so, said measure passes final reading. Members will be taking a recess, subject to call of the chair. Recess. Will the House come to order? Mr. Clerk, are there any announcements?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I have been informed by a representative of the President of the Senate that the Conference Committee report for House Bill number 200, House Draft 1, Senate Draft 1, Conference Draft 1 was adopted, and said House bill relating to the state budget passed final reading in the Senate at 10:19 a.m. on this day. In addition, I have been informed by the Assistant Clerk of the House that at 10:23 a.m. on this day, House Bill number 200, House Draft 1, Senate Draft 1, Conference Draft 1, has been duly transmitted by the legislature to the governor pursuant to Article 7, Section 9 of the Hawaii State Constitution.
All right, thank you. So members, since the budget has been enrolled, we'll just follow the order of the day, beginning with page 2. So we're on the consent calendar. This is part 1. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the Conference Committee reports listed on pages 2 through 24 and that the accompanying House and Senate bills as amended pass final reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All right, members, there is no discussion on these items that are agreed to by this body for placement on the consent calendar. We'll take the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, on the measures before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 4, CCR number 18, SB number 489, HD1, CD1, Representative Cullen votes no. On page 5, CCR number 25, SB number 412, HD1, CD1, the following vote no. Ganaden, Capella, and Peruso.
Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye.
Okay, are there any remote votes? If not, have all votes been cast? If so, said measures pass final reading. Members, just as a reminder, please submit to the clerk the list of House and Senate bills on the consent calendar for which you will be inserting written comments in support or in opposition. And this must be done by the adjournment of today's floor session. All right, so we're now on page 25, part 5, section 5B, unfinished business. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, recess, brief recess.
Okay, recess subject to call of the chair. All right, members are on, will the House come to order? We're on page 25. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, with the exception of Conference Committee Report number 13 on page 25, Conference Committee Report. Recess, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, recess. All right, will the House come to order? Representative Bellotti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I apologize. I move to adopt the Conference Committee reports listed on pages 25 through 34 and that the accompanying House and Senate bills as amended pass final reading.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Okay, could we take a recess? So just call the chair, recess. right, members, could the House come to order before we take another recess? So we're on page 25. Representative Morikawa. She second the motion?
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All right, members, is there any discussion on beginning with CCR number 3? Representative Wildberger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With reservations, please.
So ordered. Okay, CCR number 10, CCR number 11, CCR number 13. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recommit Conference Committee Report number 13 and the attached proposed conference draft to Conference Committee.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Members, is there any discussion on the recommittal for CCR 13? Representative McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in support of the recommittal.
Please proceed.
Your conference committees met, and we agreed to support the House position as affirmed by your committee, and making sure that these kinds of things would be appealable in the future. The interest of due process is such that I don't think this committee, this CD1 reflects what the House was trying to do, and therefore I support the recommittal. And we can work on this hopefully next year. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion on the recommittal? Okay, if not, we'll take the vote. So voice vote. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. On the next page, CCR number 15, number 17, number 21, number 22, number 24. Representative Capella.
Mr. Speaker, with reservations and a brief comment.
Please proceed.
Kona and Ka'u coffee are two of the state's most iconic agricultural products. They're both grown in my district. Yet the outbreak of coffee leaf rust that we are currently experiencing is threatening the health of our coffee plants, and in turn, the economic well-being of Hawaii Island's farmers and our beloved coffee industry. Therefore, I strongly support the measure's expansion of the coffee berry borer subsidy program to include coffee leaf rust. As Kona coffee farmers have noted in their testimony, however, we need to focus on funding fertilizers that strengthen the tree and their ability to resist rust infestation. In his testimony on this proposal, Kona Coffee Farmers Association President Kolaur Bandera said that strengthening tree health is a vital component of fighting the coffee leaf rust infestation, much like human immune systems fighting off viral infection. Our state has taken strides in recent years to move away from using pesticides to resolve agricultural problems. Since pesticides are often poisonous to community members, our farmers, and our environment. In the future, I truly hope that we can and we will work with local farmers in addressing agricultural issues in a way that is safe and long-lasting, so that we can advance regenerative agricultural practices throughout Hawaii's farming industry. Thank you very much.
Okay, is there further discussion on number 24? Representative Wildberger?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Same request. And if the words of, yes, please. If the words of my colleague from the Big Island can be put into the record as if they were my own. Mahalo.
So ordered. Further discussion? Representative Lowen?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support and brief comment.
Please proceed.
The product used for coffee berry borer is actually an organic fungus. And then for coffee leaf rust, we haven't heard that this is one of the pesticides of major concern for toxicity. So I feel like these concerns are a little preemptive and reactionary. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion? If not, on the next page, number 26, number 28, 30. Representative Capella?
Support with a brief comment.
So ordered.
To begin, I would really like to thank the House Education Committee Chair for his incredibly hard work and mentorship, but his hard work specifically on this measure. Life is not a standardized test, and I think we can hear that time and over again. Too often, however, our schools are judged on test scores that do not accurately reflect the quality of their students' learning potential. Academic and financial plans are the guiding documents for school programming. This measure will ensure that ACFIN, as they're often called, will focus on inputs that genuinely determine student achievement, like access to quality teachers and class size. This bill puts into law the definition of authentic assessments as well, which is extremely significant. Authentic assessments are the exact opposite of standardized tests. Rather than reducing learning to a series of rote questions, they align that they align classroom instruction with real-world problem solving, allowing students to apply what they learn to addressing critical issues that are faced in their communities. I applaud the Education Committee Chair and those who have worked on this measure for their vision in moving our school system forward in a more forward-thinking direction and empowering educational leaders to craft academic and financial plans that will deliver the schools that our Keiki and our children finally deserve. So thank you very much.
Okay, is there further discussion? If not, number 32, 34, 37, Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recommit Conference Committee Report number 37 and the attached proposed conference draft to Conference Committee.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All right, is there any discussion? If not, we'll take a voice vote to recommit. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. We're on the next page, CCR number 39. Any discussion? Representative Johansson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the measure.
Please proceed.
Imagine being in need of a $300 loan to buy a tire or to groceries, and you don't have a checking account or a savings account, and your friends and family can't loan you the money. Then imagine that you pay $529 over the span of 5 months for that initial $300 loan. This is an all too common scenario, as this is the average cost to the consumer who borrows in Hawaii through a payday lending product, according to the Pew Charitable Trusts. This is the case for nearly 20% of Hawaii's population who remain unbanked or underbanked, according to an FDIC survey. This is a significant population of our neighbors and constituents who don't have access to capital through the traditional banking system. I suspect, given the pandemic's ravages of Hawaii's economy, that the percentage is even higher now. This makes our neighbors and constituents disproportionately reliant on alternative financial services like payday lending. Although meant to help assist, our payday lending laws can trap people in need unknowingly in a cycle of debt that can significantly exacerbate their financial woes. That's what makes this bill a real boon for our constituents in need of greater economic justice. The transition away from payday lending to installment lending, which is a financial product that enables the borrower to build credit and extend their horizon to repay the loan, is a huge reform that will benefit people, and in so doing, help to put our state's population on a more financially sound footing. In this bill, interest rates are capped, monthly fees are capped, an installment period of 2 to 12 months is ensured, a borrower's ability to renegotiate if extra time is needed to pay is preserved, and the borrower's ability to pay the loan off early is guaranteed. There are numerous other consumer safeguards crafted into this bill. This bill before us, Mr. Speaker and members, is the byproduct of many years of work by my Senate counterpart, the chair of the Senate Commerce and Consumer Protection Committee. I'd like to thank her so much for her steadfast advocacy for years on this issue on behalf of consumers. I'd also wish to thank my predecessors, the CPC chairs from House District 10 in Lahaina and House District 35 in Pearl City, and the former vice chair of the CPC committee from Kahului, House District 9, for their work on this issue for these many past years. Most of all, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Commissioner of Financial Institutions, Iris Ikeda. She's one of the smartest, most inventive, and hardest working public servants I've had the pleasure of dealing with. This bill has been rewritten multiple times this session alone, thanks to Iris. She's had many a weekend and weeknight phone call with me on the nuances and details of this almost 100-page measure. She's worked hard to help us address concerns from across the spectrum. And in so doing, she's helped to ensure that Hawaii will not only have a viable installment lending product, but also a workable transition away from payday lending, all the while preserving access to capital for some of our residents most in need. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to thank you for allowing your chairs the freedom to craft the House's agenda. Economic justice is a passion of mine and so many of our colleagues. And I've been reminded over the years that it can come in many forms. There's no one bill, no one panacea to engender this outcome all by itself. Rather, we must be creative enough to look at the whole landscape of ideas. This bill, the phasing out of predatory lending practices and the ushering in of a lending product to those in need that helps to build credit and weather the unplanned financial rough patches, is going to help so many in need. Today, through the passage of this bill, the House and the legislature as a whole achieve an important reform that will make Hawaii more affordable and livable for the most economically vulnerable among us. Thank you.
Is there further discussion?
Speaker.
Representative McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong support.
Please proceed.
First, would like the words of the CPC chair enter the record as if they were my own, except for the part about myself, of course.
So
and I just want to thank him for this. This was a daunting thing that has plagued your committee on CPC for years and years and years. How do you provide capital to working people in need without creating a usury environment that's full of an oppressive regime of payback? So my congratulations to him and the committee and all the work that they've done on moving the stick finally on this issue that was a vexing one for a number of years. Thank you so much.
Okay, is there further discussion? Representative Luke.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also wanted to congratulate the CPC chair. This is a culmination of work that took decades to get to this point. And, this is a very difficult issue only because in as much as we want to provide alternative means of funding and financing for the most vulnerable, we needed to put in safeguards, and it was just a tough issue for many, many years. And I wanted to congratulate both the CPC chair and the CP something chair on the Senate side, because it has taken a long time for Senator Ross Baker to work on this issue, and so congratulations to the CPC chair. And I also wanted to dedicate this to Iris Ikeda, who came in the legislature with me many years ago, and without her support and her knowledge, we wouldn't be in this place. So thank you very much.
Okay, your comments are in support, correct? Your comments are in support. Okay, correct. All right, any discussion on 39? Any further discussion? If not, number 42, Representative Tam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support.
Please proceed.
I want to begin by thanking the chair of the House Health, Human Services, and Homelessness Committee and the House Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs Committee, as well as their counterparts in the Senate for their work on this measure before us. I would also like to thank the Department of Human Services, the Governor's Coordinator on Homelessness, and many advocates, including Carla Hauser and Ian Ross, that have worked on this as well. The bill that we are voting on today expands circumstances where unaccompanied homeless minors can consent to no-cost emergency homeless shelters. The legislature had already intended to solve this very problem years ago and make Hawaii a right-to-shelter state, but the previous language fell short of providers actually providing shelter to unaccompanied minors. So right now, these kids may not be admitted and are turned away from these shelters across the islands each night. As a result, they would have to return to our streets where it is cold and where they are more prone to violence, drugs, and human trafficking. There are many circumstances where a minor can be unaccompanied and homeless. These include, but are not limited to, rejection from their family, household abuse, or they are victims of human trafficking and they're fortunate enough to escape. Now, there are concerns that this will incentivize minors to run away from home, and I won't completely dismiss these concerns, but regardless of their reasons, it is still safer for them to be in a shelter where they work with providers than be on the street. To mitigate what risks may remain, shelters will be required to record and register these minors and to coordinate with the Department of Human Services. I'm going to veer off script for a little bit. Please strike that from the record. This is very important to the LGBT community. The LGBT community is oftentimes rejected, especially by their own family. And to be rejected by a shelter is just another punch in the gut to them. By passing this bill today, the legislature will send a strong message to some of our most vulnerable populations that they are seen, they are heard, they are loved, and they are valued. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this important measure.
Okay, Representative Yamani.
Thank you, Speaker. In support.
Please proceed.
Just wanted to commend the author, the representative from Waikiki, for his hard work and dedication on this matter. He brought it back from the brink of being deferred several times. So the chair would like to commend my vice chair for his hard work and his compassion. Thank you.
All right, is there further discussion? If not, CCR number 48, 50, next page, 55, 65, 72, Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recommit Conference Committee Report number 72 and attached proposed conference draft to Conference Committee.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion to recommit? Representative Gannon. Representative Gannon.
Mr. Speaker, in support.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, the men who crafted the United States Constitution didn't get a lot right. Something that they did get right is the Bill of Rights, the Fourth Amendment, which prevents the government from unreasonable search and seizure. If you are practicing in criminal justice, this is your bread and butter. This is what we talk about all the time. There's nothing more American than telling the government to get the hell off my property and come back with a warrant. This bill is colloquially referred to as the Breonna Taylor Law. It's part of an international conversation about police justice. It is especially important here because there have been numerous officer-involved shootings over the last decade and especially over the last month. The previous Honolulu police chief is currently spending time in federal prison. The current one has recently stepped down. This bill would have incorporated some of the oversight that we were hoping for in police departments that is happening across the nation. In support, again, hoping that in the future this body can craft a law that allows for officers to reduce officer-involved shootings, reduce violence in our communities. Thank you so much.
Representative Matayoshi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to raise some concerns that were raised by the public defender on constitutional...
Are you in support? Or?
Oh, I'm sorry, in support of the recommittal. We want to just point out that the public defenders did come out with constitutional issues based on the 30-second waiting period. And also we had concerns brought to us by the Attorney General's office and prosecutors and most other police organizations in this state. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Representative Capella?
Mr. Speaker, in strong support.
Please proceed.
This year, we've seen so many people take to the streets to demand justice for people that need it. And it's really just disappointing to me that this bill has given so many people so much hope for our legislative session and for people that have just been pushed aside by not having justice. And it's so disappointing to me that we're going to recommit this bill and take away that hope so quickly. So I hope that in the future, we will do so much more to uplift every single person around us, regardless of race or ethnicity. Thank you.
Representative Ward.
Speaker, in support of the recommittal?
We're on the motion to recommit.
Yes, in support of that.
Please proceed.
I would just add what we heard in the Judiciary Committee. It was very clear. HPD does this. It's not in writing, as this bill would indicate, but they said they are doing this. Maybe that needs to be probably spelled out, but they just don't bust into people's houses the way that some may have implied. Thank you, Speaker.
All right, is there further discussion? If not, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. We're on CCR number 73. Any discussion? Representative Wahlberger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With reservations, please.
So ordered. Further discussion? If not, 76. Next page, 78, 79, 80, 84. Next page, 87, 89, 90, 94, 97. Next page, 99, 100, 104, 108, 111. Next page, 113. Representative Nakamura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In recent months, as tourism
In
has
support or opposition?
In support.
Please proceed.
In recent months, as tourism has picked up, residents around the state have raised concerns. We don't want to go back to pre-pandemic tourism in Hawaii. The congested roads at scenic spots and coastal areas, illegal parking along popular beach parks, the constant noise of helicopters in residential areas, and overcrowded hiking trails and trailheads. Many are calling for better management of our destination, our home, the communities we represent. Mr. Speaker, HB 1276 is one tool to assist the State Parks Division manage our parks by giving the BLNR the authority to set entrance, parking, shuttle, lodging, and camping fees in a flexible way depending on visitor seasonal demand and peak usage. By setting visitor limits and increasing visitor fees, we can earn much more than the rigid $2 per person across the board park entrance fee that took 1 year to adopt via rules. By charging $35 for a shuttle and entrance fee to Haiana State Park, for example, we reduce the cars on the road, reduce greenhouse gases, and make the community shuttle financially feasible. Revenues will be used to do interpretive signage, improve park amenities, and maintain our parks. This bill, Mr. Speaker, along with HB 601 that gives police chiefs the authority to use county staff other than police officers to issue parking citations that was recently passed, are tools that help communities throughout the state manage the impacts of over-tourism. I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, for providing these tools that will help tourism coexist with our communities. By setting limits and by providing management tools to our state and county agencies, we improve the quality of life for our residents and an amazing quality experience for our visitors. Mahalo to the Water and Land, Judiciary, and Finance chairs for their early support of these strategies.
Representative Martin.
I rise in support as a heavily impacted district with similar problems that are being addressed in this bill. I'd like to have the words of the Chair of Housing adopted as if they were my own.
So ordered. Further discussion? Representative Burt Kobayashi.
Mr. Speaker, in support.
Please proceed.
I represent the area which includes Diamond Head. Diamond Head has had 1 million visitors in 2019. Those visitors are crammed into a narrow trail going up to the summit of Diamond Head. What this bill will do is enable the Parks Department to experiment in demand pricing so that there would be a different price for entry during different times of the day, and thus even out the number of hikers going up to the summit at any one time. This flexibility, along with the opportunity to spend some of the money, would help high demand areas. Thank you.
Right, Representative Holt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, in strong support.
Please proceed.
And may I please have the words of the Housing Chair inserted into the journals if they're my own?
So ordered.
And I would just like to give a special thanks to her because, going out to the North Shore of Kauai and seeing what she has done to fix that place after the disaster that they had, it's a great example for all of us and what we can do to our state parks around our state. So special thanks and in strong support.
Is there further discussion? If not, 114. 117. Representative Martin.
Sorry, for 114, I just rise in strong support and with gratitude to the Finance Chair and the Waterland Chairs from both the House and the Senate in using our job creation recovery money in a way that will really invest in the future of our state and help us deal with climate change. Thank you.
All right, that was 114. Any further discussion on 114? If not, 117, 120, 121. Next page, 122. Representative Lowen.
Sorry, can we go back to STANCOM report 120 at the appropriate time?
All right, could you repeat that number?
120 House Bill 552.
Yes, let's go back. We're on CCR 120, Representative Lowen.
Just strong support and permission to insert comments in the journal.
So ordered. So further discussion on 120. Okay, if not, we'll go back to the next page, 122, 130, 133. Representative Mizuno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to rise in support.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I'd like permission to submit comments to the journal, please.
So ordered.
Thank you very much. I wanted to recognize 3 people that really advocated for this bill. On the Senate side, the chair of the Economic Development, Tourism, and Technology Committee, he did a great job at advocating for the passage. 2 other people, Ms. Hawaii USA 2020, Samantha Nalen, who did a great job in educating me and working with myself, as well as Danny DeGracia, who's a civil beat writer and worked for the state. He also worked for the legislature before, worked together on the passage of this bill. Just wanted to thank them, and just wanted to recognize the historical significance that June 19th has, as it displays the end of slavery and also recognizes the great work of our African Americans in our community. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Is there further discussion? Representative Gates.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First off, I would like to adopt the words of the Vice Speaker as if they were my own and insert them into the journal.
And you're standing in support of this measure?
Yes, in support.
Please proceed.
I would just like to also recognize that by passing this bill, we will not be the last state to adopt Juneteenth and recognize it as a holiday. The last state is South Dakota, so I'm glad we're able to beat them. Also, I want to mahalo the chair of GVO, WAM, JHA, and FIN for moving this measure forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, thank you. Is there further discussion? If not, we're on 138. No, 136. Strike that. 136. 140. Any discussion? Okay, if not, we'll be taking the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, with the exception of CCR 13, SB 399, CCR 37, HB 103, CCR 72, SB 726, on the measures before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 26, CCR number 15, SB number 413, Rep. Nakamura votes no. CCR number 17, SB number 1421, the following vote no. Capella, Peruso. On page 27, CCR number 28, SB number 807, Representative Kong votes no. On page 29, CCR number 55, SB number 1313, the following representatives vote no. Capella, Peruso. On page 30, CCR number 80, HB number 1022, the following vote no. Decoit, Capella, Kong, Peruso, Tokioka, Wahlberger. On page 31, CCR number 87, SB number 589, Representative Dale Kobayashi votes no. CCR number 90, SB number 1039, Representative McKelvey votes no. That's it. Thank you.
Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye, with the exception of the following. On page 25, CCR 10, HB 1023, HD1 SD2, Representative McDermott votes no. On page 26, CCR 22, SB 345, SD2, HD1, CD1, Representative Ward votes no. On page 27, CCR 26, SB 157, HD1, CD1, Representative McDermott votes no. On CCR 32, HB 683, HD2, SD1, CD1, Representative McDermott votes no. On page 28, CCR 42, HB 282, HD1, SD2, CD1, Representative McDermott votes no. On page 29, CCR 73, SB 639, SD1, HD1, CD1, Representative McDermott votes no. CCR 76, HB 631, HD1, SD1, CD1, Representative McDermott and Ward vote no. On page 30, CCR 79, HB 1318, HD1, SD1, CD1, Representative McDermott votes no. On page 31, CCR 94, SB 159, SD1, HD1, CD1, Representative McDermott votes no. On page 32, CCR 99, SB 1162, SD2, HD1, CD1, Representative McDermott votes no. On CCR 100, SB 932, SD2, HD1, CD1, Representative McDermott votes no. On CCR 104, SB 1202, SD1, HD2, CD1, Representatives McDermott and Ward vote no. CCR 111, HB 1019, HD2, SD2, CD1, Representative McDermott votes no. On page 33, CCR 113, HB 1276, HD1, SD1, CD1, Representative McDermott votes no. On CCR 114, HB 873, HD2, SD2, CD1, Representative McDermott votes no. And on CCR 120, HB 552, HD1, SD2, CD1, Representative McDermott votes no.
Right, are there any remote votes?
Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker,
Representative Har.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. On page 30, Conference Committee Report number 80, House Bill 1022, HD1, SD2, CD1. Please have the clerk register a no vote for me. Also on page 31, Conference Committee Report number 90, Senate Bill number 1039, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 2, Conference Draft 1. Please have the clerk also register another no vote for me. That's it.
Representative McKelvey.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. My apologies. CCR number 80, HB number 1022 on page 30. Also a no vote. I apologize for that.
Okay, that was CCR number 80.
Yes,
So
80,
no vote.
sir.
So ordered.
Okay, thank you. You are the wind beneath my wings.
Members, have all votes been cast? If so, said measures pass final reading. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the conference committee reports listed on pages 35 through 41 and the accompanying House and Senate bills as amended pass final reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Recess, please.
Okay, we'll take a recess subject to the call of the chair. All right, will the House come to order? Members are on page 35. Representative Bellotti, could you restate your motion?
Yes, with request to withdraw the motion and submit the following motion. I move to adopt, with the exception of Conference Committee Report 160, move to adopt the Conference Committee reports listed on pages 35 through 41 and the accompanying House and Senate bills as amended past final reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All right, is there any discussion? Beginning on page 35, CCR number 142, 143, 144, 145, 147. Next page, 148, 150. Representative Wildberger,
On 148, please, Mr. Speaker,
please proceed.
with reservations, please.
Okay, so ordered. Further discussion on 148? If not, 150.
Speaker.
Representative Ward,
Speaker, strong support.
please proceed.
This is the bill that I commended the Chair of Finance earlier because it sweeps all the special funds of which many of us have been waiting for years. So may I request further kudos to be entered into the journal, but this is a very good bill. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion? If not, 151. 152, Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recommit Conference Committee Report number 152 and the attached proposed conference draft to Conference Committee.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion to recommit? If not, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. On the next page, 155, 156, 158. Representative Nakamura,
In strong support,
please proceed.
with the median cost of a home in Hawaii at $950,000, how will our families ever afford a fee-simple home? At Pokai Bay on the Waianae Coast, 70 low and moderate income families are building 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes and will have a mortgage of $300,000. These homes are valued at $700,000 upon completion and have breathtaking ocean views. At Eleele on West Kauai, 107 low and moderate income families are in the process of building homes in 2 phases and will have a mortgage of $240,000. These homes are now valued at $450,000 and are within walking distance of an elementary school. And in Kahului, Maui, the first multi-story self-help housing was built with an average price of less than $200,000, providing a model for higher density housing at future transit-oriented development sites. Mr. Speaker, these are just a few examples of the many nonprofit housing organizations who have the expertise to make self-help housing work in Hawaii. They have built strong working relationships with development partners, the USDA, and county housing agencies. They have leveraged millions of dollars of federal funds along the way. At Pokai Bay, 88% of the construction costs will be from the federal government. By assisting developers with the remaining 12% of funding, we can stretch our state funds to help families achieve homeownership. The exciting news is that there are over 500 units of affordable self-help housing in the pipeline. HB 79 creates a new revolving loan program and fund to help fill in this gap, that 12% of financing to leverage federal funds to make homeownership possible. By putting in their sweat equity, families learn construction skills to help maintain their homes over the long run. Families build teamwork and a strong sense of community. And most of all, families build equity, wealth creation to achieve other goals in life. In the meantime, every county gains additional property taxes, and the state gains additional GET and income taxes by the new business generated by building suppliers, specialty contractors, insurance, and escrow companies. Mr. Speaker, I would like to recognize my Housing Committee members for their support of this measure, the 27 co-introducers of this bill, and our finance chair for helping to find the funding to get this program off the ground. And my conference co-chair and Buzz's dad, representing Kapahulu, who helped me fix this bill late Friday night. Mahalo piha to all.
Is there further, Representative Hashimoto?
Strong support, Speaker.
Please proceed.
I'd like to adopt the words of the housing chair as if they were my own, and I'd like to congratulate her on working very hard and all the stakeholders in making this happen, because I think this will be a great thing to push affordable housing development forward. Thank you, Speaker.
Representative Wildberger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and strong support.
Please proceed.
I'd like to acknowledge the leadership of our esteemed colleague from Kauai and her good work on the Housing Committee this year. It's really a breath of fresh air and moving forward with better serving our people who are struggling to get a home. Home ownership is more than just the American dream. It's the fundamental, foundational leg up economically. People who are able to get into home ownership are then able to work the equity in their home for a variety of other advancements. And so this is a great step forward. These self-help housing projects are giving families opportunities they would otherwise not be able to accomplish on their own. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion if on this measure? If not, CCR 159. Any discussion? Representative Bellotti. Representative Bellotti. Do you have a request to insert written comments on this measure?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, rise in support and request to insert written comments. Thank you.
Thank you. So ordered. Any further discussion? If not, next page, 162, 163, 164. Representative Hashimoto.
163 in strong support, Speaker.
Please proceed.
This bill is a culmination of efforts by many stakeholders and lays out a plan of action once the governor's eviction moratorium ends. The mediation is a key to this bill, which is funded through the American Rescue Plan federal relief funds, and attempts to ease the burden on the court system by attempting to find resolutions for a professional mediator before landlords can file any type of court action. The end goal is to ease landlords and tenants back to normalcy in a methodical manner after facing an unprecedented year. I would like to thank the Chair of Housing for her foresight and understanding the need to address this matter starting back in November. And as a result, this bill is a culmination of collaboration with representatives from the Mediation Center of the Pacific, landlord representatives, the Legal Aid Society, the Realtors Association, Hawaii Appleseed, Hawaii Finance and Development Corporation, and UHERO, and the judiciary, just to name a few. I would also like to thank my colleagues, especially the chair of the Consumer Protection Committee, the majority leader, yourself, Speaker, and the finance chair in helping to ensure that we could fit all of these moving pieces together to ultimately help give guidance to landlords and tenants of our state during this very difficult time. Thank you, Speaker.
Representative Nakamura.
In strong support, and I'd like to ask the Vice Chair of Housing's words be included as my own.
So ordered.
I'd also like to recognize our Vice Chair of Housing for working tirelessly with all of the stakeholders to craft a bill built on consensus. Not everyone was happy with the components of the bill, but all could live with it. We are grateful for all of the chairs who were involved from the very beginning, and would like to recognize the CPC chair for his negotiating skills to get us to the finish line. Thank you.
Representative Johansson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to stand to recognize both the Housing Vice Chair and Housing Chair.
In support or
I'm
opposition?
sorry, in support. Excuse me.
Please proceed.
Wanted to stand and recognize both the Housing Chair and the Housing Vice Chair for their incredible work, and because I think this particular bill, HB 1376, is really the epitome of what good legislation should be, both in terms of process as well as final product. You've heard from the two previous speakers just how much collaboration existed on this bill, but I think just to flesh it out in a little more detail, it was Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting from November, and truly it's one thing to talk to stakeholders in a silo and then report back to other disagreeing stakeholders what somebody else said. I think what is so commendable about the vice chair and the chair's work on this bill is that they did it all together. It was many Zoom calls with people who adamantly disagreed and came at it from both the side of tenants' rights as well as landlord rights, an area that many of us who have been in the legislature for a long time know is fraught with a lot of disagreement, a lot of tension, and a lot of controversy. And so to convene these stakeholders regularly and rigorously and achieve a product is very commendable. Also, not just in terms of process, why I think this is such a great bill, but also in terms of the final product. It really seeks to help tenants who are in need, and there are a lot of them, Mr. Speaker, but I think it also balances that very nicely and arrived at a good compromise, a good constructive, effective compromise, I might add, to also ensure that all of this mountain of debt that many landlords are left having accrued and tenants are left with ultimately has a path toward resolution. So I really just want to congratulate the Housing Vice Chair and the Housing Chair for really demonstrating in this bill what great legislation should look like. Thank you.
Representative Bellotti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong support, request to insert written comments.
So ordered.
And just to echo my thanks for the Vice Chair and the Chair of Housing and the Chair of CPC for leading the efforts in this collaborative legislative piece. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion on this measure? If not, 164, 165, next page, 166, 167, 168, 169, 171. Representative Wahlberger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In exasperated opposition, please.
On 171, please proceed.
Yes, please. Every paycheck, all of you contribute $255.63 to our ERS system. That's about $312,000 for the House, about $159,000 from the Senate, and then if you count up all of the contributions for the staff in the building, it's another just short of $1 million. So annually, $1.4 million, a drop in the bucket compared to all of the state employees that are contributing to our ERS system. This bill is asking for less transparency and more opacity in the conducting of investment of your retirement dollars. A system which has unfunded liabilities. This bill is asking to allow secrecy in unconventional investments of your retirement money. So are we going to make a big investment in Bitcoin? Who knows? Is there going to be enough money left over for Jackson Sayama to retire? We won't know. I am encouraging my colleagues to join me.
State your point. Representative Quillen.
We should not refer to members by their given names.
Yes, we'll correct that in the
My
journal.
apologies. My esteemed colleague from Kaimuki. I want him to be able to have a solid, reliable retirement when he reaches his pension age. I encourage my colleagues to take a second look at this. And do you want to have oversight over how your money is invested? Do you want to know if your money is invested sustainably? Are your investments supporting our communities? Or are they investing in fossil fuels? Are they investing in companies like Blackstone that commit undesirable acts on our lands and to our people? Thank you very much.
Okay, is there further discussion on this measure? Representative Peruso.
With reservations.
So ordered. Okay, next page, 172. Representative Capella.
In support, Mr. Speaker, with a brief comment.
Please proceed.
I want to start by thanking the House Finance Chair and her Senate counterpart, the chair of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, for their work on this bill. I am incredibly heartened that we passed a budget this year that addressed the economic impact and downturn that prevents major programs from being cut and also preventing layoffs. If we fail to raise revenue, however, we will face difficult economic challenges in the near future. This measure increases taxes on luxury property investors who commodify our INA by raising the conveyance tax on the sale of properties valued at $4 million or greater. It also temporarily repeals a number of general excise tax exemptions that unfairly distort our tax code. According to the Hawaii Department of Taxation's estimates on similar versions of this bill, the provisions of this measure could raise close to $95 million for fiscal year 2022 and $125 million for fiscal year 2023. We need that money in order to sustain the programs that we are using federal funds to subsidize this year and to cover the cost of future expenses, such as expanding access to quality preschool programs and creating a clean energy economy and uplifting our public health. So I hope that in years to come, we will look at additional measures to tax the rich to produce the revenue that we need in order to help our working families. But until then, this bill is one step forward in a pursuit of an economic justice for all. So thank you very much.
All right, is there further discussion? If not, 174. Representative Ward.
Speaker, I rise with reservations.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, this is probably my 5th or 6th speech on this issue. This is about the Stadium Authority and its lack of creative, innovative, taxpayer-saving methodology by at least putting out there selling the naming rights of Aloha Stadium. It's been done by so many places, even right at UH in the field. And I can't understand why, if you don't ask, you don't get, why we don't at least ask. And I know that this is kind of a broken record, but Mr. Speaker, we're at a difficult time in terms of our finances. And to be able to do this, to at least leverage it, give people the opportunity to name the Aloha Stadium, whether it's Hawaiian Airlines or whether it's any other company that wants to come in. But the point is, taxpayers need to be aware that we're not doing that, and the fact that we should be. And may I add other comments to the journal in regards to this issue.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Representative Presti.
Thank you, Speaker. In opposition?
Please proceed.
I share some of the concerns of my colleague from Hawaii Kai, but my opposition has always been largely about, and again, I'm sorry to repeat myself, but the lack of a clear plan in any redevelopment for the Stadium Development District for an emergency laydown area. I hope to God we never need it, but someday when there's a South Shore event, a major tsunami, or a man-made disaster in Honolulu Harbor, where we have to go to the emergency backup plan to unload containers, that we can't use Honolulu Harbor, we're not going to have an area where we can lay those down and people will die, because they're not going to get their food, they're not going to get their medicine, there aren't enough airplanes to bring in stuff into the state if there's a major emergency. And still to this day, there is nothing in the plan to make sure that we simply have a parking lot strong enough to hold containers. But we can't get this in there. My other major concern has always been, even going back to 2017, I think it was, when I made a speech on the floor about who runs the Stadium Development District Authority. They're largely lobbyists. We're giving so much control and so much power to these appointed lobbyists to make these deals, presumably on behalf of the public interest and the public good. Forgive me, I don't have that kind of faith in lobbyists to do that. There's nothing preventing any of these people from suddenly changing jobs and becoming some highly paid 6-figure, maybe 7-figure consultant for the people who get these contracts.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Bellotti.
Can the Speaker address the rostrum?
Yes, please confine your remarks. Representative Presti.
Thank you. I believe I am. If I hear a noise behind me, I might turn around, but I'm addressing my remarks this way. Where was I? I don't have the faith in lobbyists to make the right decisions for the public good and the public interest. There's nothing preventing them that prevents people like us. We can't just switch our jobs and become a lobbyist and make money off of, but not that anybody ever's done that, of course, that we can't just switch jobs and become a lobbyist and start making money from companies that might have benefited from legislation we've done in the past. There's nothing preventing these lobbyists from doing that necessarily, and I don't trust them to do the right thing. And I just think it's too much power for a small select group whose only real qualification in my book is having given money to people like us. Thank you.
Is there further discussion on this measure? If not, 175, 176.
Can I call a short recess, please?
We take a recess subject to call of the chair. Recess.
Members of the House, please be seated.
All right, will the House come to order? Members are on page 40. Can we go back to CCR number 175? Representative Lowen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just with reservations and permission to insert comments in the journal.
So ordered. Further discussion? If not, 176. Representative Lowen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition and brief comment.
Please proceed.
Even though I recognize this is just a working group, the way that the language is currently written supposes the ultimate, or presumes the ultimate transfer of these lands from DOA to DLNR. And I think there still needs to be more discussion that takes place about whether that should be the end result, not simply about how it happens. The transfer of these lands out of DLNR could mean that they never ever are put back into conservation, that they never ever regrow the native forests that used to be there, that protect our watershed and sequester carbon. So thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion? Representative Wildberger?
With reservations, please.
So ordered. Representative Capella?
No vote, and I would like the words of the representative from Kailua Kona inserted into the journal as if they were my own.
So ordered. Representative Pruso?
With reservations, and I would also like the comments of the representative from Kona entered into the journal as if they were my own.
So ordered. So further, Representative Martin?
With the reservation, same request.
Was that with reservations or?
With reservations and the same
Okay,
request.
so ordered. Representative Decoit?
Mr. Speaker, with reservations and permission to insert comments to the journal.
So ordered. Representative McKelvey?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Same request.
So ordered.
And would like the words of the representative from Kona entered in the records if they were my
Okay,
own.
so ordered. Further discussion? If not, next page 177, 182. Representative Yamane?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Standing in support.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, when you assigned me the Committee of Health, Human Services and Homelessness, you asked us to be bold. The measure before you, Mr. Speaker, takes a bold step forward. Before I continue on my comments, I did want to say my deepest appreciation to your Chair of Finance. She brought the bill back from the brink of death to be before you today. Mr. Speaker, in collaboration with both the Chair of Health on the Senate as well as the Chair of Human Services in the Senate, all three chairs worked together tirelessly to bring in all the various stakeholders to the table. Mr. Speaker, what you have before you is a single measure that not only will move the state forward on addressing long-term care issues, but Mr. Speaker, will also allow the state to be more proactive on things of chronic homelessness as well as severely mental health issues. Mr. Speaker, as chair, I had to work with various entities. I would like to thank the Chair of Labor as well as HGA as we moved forward on this measure, allowing them to look outside the box. Mr. Speaker, in this measure before you, you will have, within a transition of a year and a half, a movement in which now we will be able to positively impact the lives of hundreds, maybe thousands of Hawaii residents, those that are suffering with severe mental health issues, Speaker. Also addressing the economic drag on having chronic homelessness entering our emergency rooms. So before you, again, I would like to thank you for your support on moving this measure and bringing it to the floor as we address what you charged our committee to do, which is be bold to address our fiscal impact and then address the needs of the people of Hawaii. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion on this measure? Representative Tam,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support,
please proceed.
I want to take this moment to thank the chair of the Health, Human Services, and Homelessness Committee for his work on this bill. I've seen him spend late nights and a lot of time working on this, and I just wanted to make it for the record that he deserves the deepest amount of appreciation for what we're about to vote on today.
Okay, is there further discussion? Representative Luke.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong support, I also wanted to thank the Chair of Health for being able to allow us to pass this bill. This has been the work of years by former Health Chair and myself, and this new Health Chair was able to accomplish what we are doing today. The Oahu region has never been a profit-making portion, only because it really deals with the individuals who have nowhere else to go because they are the Medicaid population that no other private entities wanted to take. So they, the two Oahu, Maluhia, and Leahi were never able to make enough money to support themselves. The result of that was that all the other HHSC entities, which basically were the neighbor island hospitals, and for certain areas, it was the only major hospital in that neighborhood, had to contribute money for the Oahu region to continue its function. And that's how the HHSC, the whole corporate model, became. And so because of that, there was a lot of inequities. And so in as much as the neighbor island healthcare hospitals wanted to succeed and provide different type of state-of-the-art health needs or health care for its residents, really, unfortunately, because of the way the structure was made, it could not move in that direction. But the Oahu region has a different purpose, and thanks to the Deputy Director of Health, Eddie Mercero, who really deserved the credit for working on this issue, Oahu region, the two hospitals in the Oahu region, serves the purpose of the continuum of service for whether it's homeless individuals or to take care of mental health, or how do we integrate the entire behavioral health agencies within Department of Health, integrate that with the state hospital, Hawaii State Hospital? How do we provide beds that our private hospitals and public hospitals cannot provide? So this is a significantly important piece of legislation, and my heartfelt gratitude goes out to the health chair for helping us get to the next stage of tackling behavioral health within the state of Hawaii. Thank you very much.
Representative Bellotti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong support, may I have the words of the previous speaker adopted as if they were my own,
So ordered.
and request to insert written comments.
So ordered. Representative Ward.
Speaker, a no vote on this and a couple of comments.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I hope the Chair of Finance is right. I just don't have the same faith that putting it into the government hands is going to do the job, because it's lost millions and millions of dollars over the years. And how we look at the Department of Health, how it handled the pandemic and what happened with the personnel. There's a number of things that when you're working for government, you're in a different mindset. So the bottom line, Mr. Speaker, is I'm not from Missouri, but it's going to show me that this is going to be better, because when someone says, I'm from the government, I'm here to help you, which I think this bill says, it's not a good sign that what we can expect for future development. And that is basically having these hopefully break even or not be so much in red ink as they have been over the past decade or so. Thank you, Speaker.
Okay, is there further discussion? If not, 183, 184. Representative Wahlberger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is so very different in opposition.
Please proceed.
This bill is so very different from the draft that I signed earlier this year, and my name is on it. So I'd like to express why I oppose the final version of this bill. I am very grateful for the Finance Committee getting a handle on HTA spending and reducing their funding and creating accountability. I am opposed to the reduction in TAT tax that the sister island counties are going to be tasked with generating themselves. In the case of Maui, who generated $280 million in calendar year 2019, 3% of that will be a solid 2/3 reduction from the $22 million we used to be allocated. And it just feels like a taxation without representation issue to me. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion? Representative Tam.
With reservations and a brief comment.
Please proceed.
I want to thank the chair of the Economic Development Committee, the chair of the Tourism and Labor Committee, and the chair of Finance for their hard work negotiating this bill, and HTA for their work keeping, trying to revive our economy. There are a lot of moving parts to this bill, and I think that it definitely has some merit and it's worth a try. This is a year to restructure our government, and this pandemic allows us to do that. And if this bill doesn't work, I think that we can always come back, but it's definitely worth a try, especially when we're talking about restructuring our government. So for those reasons, I'm in support with reservations.
Okay, it's further. Representative Quinlan.
In strong support, Mr. Speaker.
Please proceed.
And I'd also like to thank the Finance Chair and the Chair of Labor and Tourism for helping me work on this measure. Besides the obvious, let me tell you, for years and years and years, the Hawaii Tourism Authority has enjoyed an incredible degree of not just autonomy, but guaranteed funding. And they produced results. They produced some incredible results, 11 million visitors a year. But I submit to the members that perhaps they weren't the results that we really wanted. And if you ask my constituents, they would tell you that we brought too many people who, on average, were not spending enough money per person. So the impacts of the visitor industry have started to outweigh the benefits in many parts of Hawaii. So this measure is one of accountability to not just the taxpayer, but also to the legislature as we seek to redefine what the future of tourism is in Hawaii. Thank you.
Representative Todd.
Thank you. In support.
Please proceed.
I just first wanted to thank the body, and particularly the Economic Development Chair and Finance Chair, for ensuring that Pisces still exists, because I know that was a point of contention earlier in the year. And on behalf, I think, of a lot of the East Hawaii legislators, in particular, I'm very thankful for that. And then beyond that, I did want to note that while there is a possibility that the total revenue to the neighbor islands will decline with this change to the way TAT is distributed, that doesn't have to be the case. It just depends on what is actually collected. And if you look at the 3% that is proposed, that in theory should actually lead to more money for the counties than the 103 million, which was a share of roughly 600. So 3 million as a percentage, or 3% was actually higher than they had been receiving, assuming that TAT revenues return to normal. Thank you.
Representative Ganadan.
In support, Mr. Speaker.
Please proceed.
I'd like the words of the representative from the North Shore inserted to the journal as if they were my own.
So ordered.
Also thanking the Finance Committee and the Finance on Labor and Tourism. As the representative of thousands of people who work in the hotel industry, I think that the reining in of the taxpayer dollars spent on Hawaii Tourism Authority is long overdue, and that this bill represents a test as to whether or not trickle-down economics works in real time, whether or not hotels, in asking for taxpayer dollars to spend on public relations sent out to mainly Americans who are going to come here no matter what because they can't travel abroad, will be spent on the taxpayers themselves, will be spent on the human beings who live and work in our communities. And right now, they are not totally doing that. They're not rehiring at an effective rate. They're not bringing back people who lost their jobs last year. So my thanks again on reining in the budget for the Hawaii Tourism Authority.
Okay. Representative Okioka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support with reservations.
Please proceed.
And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Labor Chair. When we were on a recess, I asked him about the bill. I'm sure many of us received the emails from the industry, and he shared some discussions that he had with the industry, and that helped me understand the position that we were in with everything going on. And I do know for all of us who read the bill when it came over from the Senate, or their version of it, this is a way, way better bill. It kept in a lot of the Hawaiian programs, which was important to many of us. It kept the body whole, but I do have concerns with the decrease in the taxes for the counties. Although we're all going to be suffering now, it's hard to tell what it's going to turn out to be. So for that reason, I just want to thank, as well as the Chair of Labor and Tourism, the Chair of Economic Development for their work on this bill. Thank you very much, Speaker.
So further discussion. Representative Martin.
Hi, I rise in support, but I do want to say that I have learned that I will never introduce a bill titled Relating to State Government again. This bill was dramatically transformed, and I was very concerned when they added in cuts to HTA. I've actually been very supportive of HTA's change from simply marketing to more management of tourism, and I wanted to continue to support that movement. And so I'm glad that the House worked to restore funding. Thank you.
Representative Ward.
Thank you, Speaker. No vote, brief comment.
Please proceed.
2 reasons why this is not good policy, Mr. Speaker. First of all, it lets the tax issue out of the bag. Counties generally have taxation for property taxes. This now puts them into the hotel tax, and the hotel tax specified in the bill is on top of the transit accommodation tax of the state. So the lack of competition, or let's say that they're going to be more expensive to go to the neighbor islands than before. The second thing, and it's part of this bill, Mr. Speaker, we dropped the ball on space exploration, diversifying the economy in aerospace tourism. It's unfortunate because that's going to be the future when electric and self-driving cars come. These drones and all the things that were going to be in the Office of Aerospace are now going to be put on the side. So the issue of the taxation, we wanted the community to be uniform in terms of the Safe Travels Hawaii. Now we're going to have different kind of taxes on different hotels on different islands. I don't think that's a good policy, and it lets the whole taxation issue, which was a property tax issue, out of the bag, and who knows where it's going to take us. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, serious doubts as to whether this policy will ever reach anything good. Thank you.
All right, is there further discussion? Representative Luke,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and strong support.
please proceed.
Let me just start by thanking the representative from the 51st District for allowing a broad title for us to be able to put in sections of the bill, but that is a lesson for all of us. When we send over broad titles, it could come back with something like this. But I do wanted to thank the Labor Chair, the ECD Chair. Initially, this had tons of other components, but we were able to whittle it down to what was important for the House. So what was important for the House, Mr. Speaker? It was important that we have a mechanism to hold HTA accountable and to set a vision for HTA, which was not specifically industry-driven, but really the state-driven. So that's why in this bill, and what has been passed this year, is to take the research portion out of HTA and give it to DBED. Because at the beginning of the year, when we hear from economists, and they talk about the tourism numbers growing on a yearly basis, where it hit 10 million tourists prior to COVID hitting, but the amount of tourism spending has not kept up with the number of tourists coming into Hawaii, has been a disturbing trend for many of us. How do we fix that? And that has been the big issue that we've been grappling with. In as much as, whether it's the House or whether it's the Senate, administration, outside, community members, HTA, they've all talked about we cannot go back to how it was before. We cannot have 10 million tourists come onto our lands and continue to grow without individuals paying the comparable or proportionately same amount of spending. Well, this bill does that. What does it do? Instead of having a 10.25 or with the rail tax 11.25, there's a potential that hotel tax could be 13%. There's a potential that not just on hotels, Airbnbs and bed and breakfast could also have, in addition to their property tax, the additional 3%. In addition to this bill, there's a rental car surcharge bill that has increased, ocean stewardship that has increased, the parks funding that has increased. But this is all part of the big plan to how do you have tourists pay for their fair share of using natural resources in the state of Hawaii? Or should that burden be transferred to the local residents? And I think our answer collectively is no. So I am very proud to stand today to pass this bill, to have an opportunity for us to pave the future about curbing tourism, but at the same time, having the right type of tourists who will pay their share, who will pay for the use of resources, who will pay for the use of coming to Hawaii, and I'm very proud to be part of this House. So thank you very much to the Labor Chair. Thank you very much to the ECD Chair and the Tourism Chair. Thank you.
What is there further discussion? If Representative Lopresti.
Mr. Speaker, to insert comments, do we have to say we want to insert comments? Sorry.
Yes, you can request it. Are you in support? Is it in support?
Sorry, at the appropriate time, if we can go back to Conference Committee Rep Port number 174.
Could you repeat the number, please?
174, please.
174. Okay, let's finish 184. Further discussion? Representative Burt Kobayashi.
Mr. Speaker, in support.
Please proceed.
I'd like to touch on the various themes here. Number one, county autonomy. I believe that giving the counties authority to add on a hotel room tax provides them with autonomy, true autonomy, so that they can determine their own future. I once worked in the state of Michigan, where county autonomy, or sometimes home rule, was a huge and important issue. County officials in Michigan could run their entire campaign on that plank of home rule. Personally, I believe that eventually we should think about expanding county autonomy and giving counties more taxing authority, not just for the hotel room tax. Let them put their votes on the line. Let them be accountable to their own counties. One size does not fit all. The kind of needs that Honolulu has are far different from County of Kauai, and that should be noted. And we, the state of Hawaii, cannot easily do that. We tend to look at each county as more or less the same, depending on which county we come from. The second point is sustainable tourism. I don't know what that means. And I believe that HTA has only a fuzzy definition for what that means. I think that eventually, if HTA does figure out what that means, they should put it into hard terms, particularly dollar terms, and tell us what they're going to spend their money on. I once was executive secretary of the Governor's Commission on Population and the Hawaiian Future. This was an attempt to deal with what was called quality growth. We were talking about having too many tourists, or the potential of having too many tourists in Hawaii. Their concern was, and this was in 1975, so I'm dating myself, this was their concern, that Hawaii in the year 2000 would have 11 million tourists. Of course, that did not happen in year 2000. But in year 2019, we did have 10 million tourists, and we seem to be climbing very, very rapidly to 11 million tourists. Back in the 1970s, this concern about quality growth was sufficient so that you had virtually every large corporation in town represented by their CEOs involved in a huge task force and set of meetings and conferences to try to figure out how to achieve quality growth. I think that maybe we need to think about and marshal the leaders of the community, again going back to what happened in the 1970s, and really put together a community-wide vision of sustainable tourism. So for these reasons, I support this bill, and I hope that this is the first step in a conversation with HTA and the entire industry to figure out what we will become. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further discussion on this measure, we'll go back to 174. Representative Presti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wish to enter comments in the journal.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Har.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Conference Committee Report number 184, may I please ask the clerk to register a yes vote with reservations? May I please incorporate the words of the representative from Lihue, and may I please request permission to enter written comments into the journal?
Okay, it's so ordered.
Thank you.
So that was on 184. Any further discussion on 184 or any other matter? If not, we will take the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, with the exception of CCR 152, HB 224, and CCR 160, HB 613, all majority members vote aye, with the exception of the following. On page 37, CCR number 155 HB 869, Representative Dale Kobayashi votes no. On page 38, CCR number 165 HB number 891, the following vote no: Kong and Tokioka. On page 39, CCR number 166 HB number 485, Representative Kong votes no. CCR number 168 HB number 526, the following vote no: Decoit, Tokioka. CCR number 169 HB number 1296, the following vote no: Decoit, Hashem, Capella, Iligan, Takumi, Tokioka. CCR number 171, HB number 930, the following vote no: Dale Kobayashi, Lopresti, Tam, Wildberger. On page 40, CCR number 172, HB number 58, the following vote no: Decoit, Kong, Tokioka. CCR number 174, HB number 1348, Rep. Lopresti votes no. CCR number 175, HB number 499, the following vote no: Decoit, Eli, Ganaden, Gates, Hashem, Capella, Dale Kobayashi, Kong, Lopresti, McKelvey, Peruso, Takumi, Tam, Wildberger. CCR number 176, HB number 469, the following vote no: Capella, Lowen. On page 41, CCR number 177, HB number 1142, the following vote no: Decoit, Kong, Tokioka. CCR number 184, HB number 862, the following vote no: Hashem, Kong, McKelvey, Takumi, Waldberger.
Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye, with the exception of the following. On page 37, CCR 155, HB 869, HD1, SD1, CD1, Representative Ward votes no. On page 39, CCR 166, HB 485, HD1, SD1, CD1, Representatives McDermott, Okimoto, and Ward vote no. CCR 169, HB 1296, HD1, SD2, CD1, Representative Matsumoto, McDermott, Okimoto vote no. On page 40, CCR 172, HB 58, HD1, SD1, CD1, Representative McDermott and Ward vote no. On page 41, CCR 177, HB 1142, HD2, SD2, CD1, Representatives McDermott and Okimoto vote no. CCR 182, SB 628, SC2, HD2, CD1, Representative Ward votes no. CCR 184, HB 862, HD2, SD2, CD1, Representative Ward votes no.
Okay, are there any remote votes?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. On page 36, CCR 150.
Okay, I'm sorry, we can't really hear. Could you speak louder,
Sorry.
please?
Okay. On Conference Committee Report number 150, House Bill 1298, CD1, please have the clerk register a no vote for me. On page 38, Conference Committee Report number 165, House Bill 891, CD1, please have the clerk register a no vote. On page 39, Conference Committee Report number 168, House Bill 526, CD1. Please have the clerk register a no vote. On Conference Committee Report number 169, House Bill 1296, CD1, another no vote. On page 40, Conference Committee Report number 172, House Bill 58, CD1. Please have the clerk register a no vote. Conference Committee Report number 175, House Bill 499. Please have the clerk register a no vote. Page 41, Conference Committee Report number 177, House Bill 1142, CD1. Please have the clerk register a no vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Right, members, of all votes been cast. Representative Kong.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. On Conference CCR 168, HB 526, may the clerk register no vote. I'm not sure what happened to my green slip.
It's on 168, so ordered.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Representative Decoit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On CCR 165, HB 891, can you please have the clerk register a no vote for me as well, and I'll turn in a green slip.
It's 165, it's so ordered.
Thank you.
Members, are there additional votes? If not, said measures pass final reading. We are on page 42. So members, we have 12 measures remaining on the OD. So Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to agree to the amendments made by the Senate to House Bill number 136, House Draft 1, House Bill number 391, House Draft 3, House Bill number 490, House Draft 2, House Bill number 515, House Draft 1, House Bill number 767, House Draft 2, House Bill number 991, House Draft 2, House Bill number 1020, House Draft 1, House Bill number 1041, House Draft 1, and House Bill number 1322, House Draft 1.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Is there discussion on the motion to agree? If not, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. Mr. Clerk, are you in receipt of the record of votes forms for the appropriate House bills?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I am in receipt of the record of votes forms for House Bills 391, House Draft 3, Senate Draft 2, and 1020, House Draft 1, Senate Draft 2.
Okay, for the final reading motion, Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move that said House bills with Senate drafts as listed on pages 42 and 43 pass final reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Okay, members, are on page 42. Any discussion? HB 136, 391, 490.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Hashimoto.
Mr. Speaker, strong support of 490.
Please proceed.
This measure attempts to protect those trying to enjoy their golden years and creates enhanced penalties for those who commit crimes against our seniors, from bodily injury to breaking and entering to theft, forgery, or fraud. The hope is that those who target crimes against those who are more vulnerable will think twice and hopefully deter these crimes from happening in the first place. This priority of the Kupuna Caucus will go a long way in helping to keep our communities safe, and I want to thank the Health, Human Services, and Homeless Chair for his leadership, along with the Judiciary Chair and members of the Kupuna Caucus, along with each of the stakeholders for their support and input into making this measure a reality. Thank you, Speaker.
Okay, is there further discussion? Representative Takayama.
Mr. Speaker, I would, in support, I would like to commend the previous speaker, not only for his authorship of this measure, this important measure, but also for his leadership as House convener of the Kupuna Caucus. Even though he is himself not of Kupuna age, I think his participation shows that the impact of senior issues affects multiple generations, affects all of us in some way. So I'd like to thank him for his leadership and express my hopes for his many more years of successful leadership on behalf of the Kupuna Caucus. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion? If not, HB 515. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, in strong support, request to insert written comments.
So ordered. Representative Capella.
Mr. Speaker, with reservations and a brief comment.
Please proceed.
So to begin, I do fully support this measure's original intent, which was to discover how much locally produced food is being used in our public school system's food service programs. I have reservations about Part 2 of this bill, however, which requires the Board of Education to prioritize superintendent candidates that have 10 years of employment in the DOE, including no less than 5 years serving in the position of principal or higher. On earlier drafts of this measure, the House took the position that the BOE should prioritize candidates who have served for at least 5 years in our school system in the position of teacher or higher, which would have allowed the board to give equal consideration to superintendent candidates who have demonstrated excellence as classroom leaders. We often say that teachers are the most important factor in determining a child's learning growth. If that's true, then we should uplift the experiences of teachers in our search for the new superintendent. Focusing on departmental administrators will only reproduce the exact same shortcomings of the system that we have now. And if we want real change, then we should prioritize the idea of the teachers whose professional creativity and excellence is too often silenced by institutional paralysis. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion? If not, HB 767.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Lopresti.
Sorry, on the previous measure.
Please proceed on
I would just
515.
like the words of the previous speaker entered into the journal as if they're my own, and I share the representative's reservations.
Okay, so ordered. Further discussion? If not, HB 767. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, in strong support, request to insert written comments.
So ordered. Representative Cullen.
Strong support. I just wanted to thank the Chair of Agriculture, Finance Chair, and our colleagues on the other side for looking at this measure, because this measure, as it was and it has been a strong initiative, not just from the legislature, but from the executive branch and the DOE. This measure, sets a goal, and I just want to send a big mahalo to all the advocates that have continually worked on Farm to School, and this sets us as a target and a goal to where we need to go, because when people talk about the state purchasing local, DOE serves over 100,000 meals a day in school. So when you talk about purchasing power, this moves the state forward in procuring and purchasing locally grown food, and we provide healthier meals for the future generations. And may I please ask for permission to insert further written comments?
So ordered.
Thank you.
Is further discussion? If not, next page, HB 991, 1020. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, in strong support, request to insert written comments.
So ordered. 1041.
Oh, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Gates.
On 1020?
Yes, please proceed.
In strong support.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I would like to give a big mahalo to the Waterland, JHA, and Finn Chair for moving this measure forward. During COVID, our state parks has seen the need for a reimagining how we manage it, not just for our tourism population, but also for our local residents. In Waianae, our state parks remain closed to the public, and I believe that this measure will help move that forward. I would also like to thank the Finance Chair for beefing up the daycare budget to help manage and enforce these big ragers that happen at these state parks, as well as to enforce park rules so that our INA is taken care of. With that, Speaker, can I insert written comments as well?
So ordered.
Thank you.
Is further discussion? If not, 1041, 1322. Any discussion? If not, we'll take the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, on the measures before us, all majority members vote aye.
Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye.
Okay, are there any remote votes? If not, have all votes been cast? If so, said measures pass final reading. We're on page 44. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to agree to the amendments made by the Senate to House Bill number 345, House Draft 2, House Bill number 961, House Draft 1, and House Bill number 975, House Draft 1.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Okay, is there any discussion beginning with HB 345? 961.
Speaker.
Representative
Support, comments in the journal, please.
Wait, I'm sorry, strike that. This is the motion to agree. The debate will be on the second motion. So any discussion on the motion to agree? If not, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. Mr. Clerk, are you in receipt of the record of votes forms for the appropriate House bills?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I am in receipt of the record of votes forms for House Bills 345, House Draft 2, Senate Draft 2, and 975, House Draft 1, Senate Draft 1.
Okay, for the motion to pass final reading, Representative Belatti.
Mr. Speaker, I move that said House bills with Senate drafts as listed on page 44 pass final reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All right, is there any discussion? HB 345, HB 961, Representative McDermott.
Support, comments in the journal, please.
I'm sorry, there's comments and support?
Yes, support and comments in the journal, please.
So ordered. Further discussion? Representative Prusso.
In strong opposition. So I wanted to reiterate my concern about the first part of this measure. The first part lays out an exemption for all military dependents to have to declare residency when applying for and being awarded state and county jobs. So these public jobs will be provided for folks who won't be paying income tax in the state, and I think that that's not wise policymaking when we look at some weaknesses in our tax structure. So I think that I'm hoping that we come back and reconsider the first part of this measure next session. Mahalo.
Okay, is there further discussion? If not, HB 975. Any discussion? If not, we'll take the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, on the measures before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On HB number 961, HD1SD2, the following vote no. Capella, Dale Kobayashi, Peruso, Tam, and Waldberger.
Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye.
Okay, are there any remote votes? If not, have all votes been cast? If so, said measures pass final reading. All right, members, could you please refer to supplemental calendar number 1? This is on CCR number 185. As you know, the Senate President and I exercise our powers under Rule 13 of the Committees on Conference Procedures to extend the filing deadline for 3 fiscal bills from 11:30 p.m. on April 23rd to 6 a.m. on April 24. Of the 3 bills, only Conference Committee Report number 185 and the attached House Bill number 1281, House Draft 1, Senate Draft 2, Conference Draft 1, which was agreed upon in public, was filed after the close of the journal on April 23. Therefore, this report is listed on today's order of the day to receive the 48-hour notice of final form required by the Constitution. It will be before this chamber for final reading during our Thursday, April 29 floor session. So please note the 48-hour notice for CCR number 185. Okay, we're now on action sheets. Please refer to your digital action sheets. We will take action on a House concurrent resolution. For the motion to disagree, Representative Belatti.
Mr. Speaker, as referenced on the digital action sheets, I move to disagree to the amendments made by the Senate to HCR number 123, House Draft 1.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Right, is there any discussion? If not, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. All right, members, can we just take a 1-minute recess, subject to the call of the chair? Recess.
Members of the House, please be seated.
Will the House come to order? Members, we're back on page 44. Announcements. Are there any announcements?
Speaker?
Representative Ward.
Before we go to announcements, can I have a point of auditory order or a point of information?
Please state your point.
Mr. Speaker, I would doubt that everyone heard 100% of the speeches today. I don't know if these disco speakers or whatever they are, or it's our masks, but the combination. I mean, I love to hear the freshman speeches, especially from Kona, but I didn't catch everything because it was, depending on if it's too fast, something acoustically is missing. I don't know what it is, but I would bring that to the point to maybe the sergeant or the others. So when we do debate, we certainly are able to hear everybody's words, especially yours, Speaker. Thank you.
All right, Representative Ward, I'm sorry I couldn't hear what you just said, but we will take it under advisement. Are there any announcements, members? If not, for the motion to adjourn, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 10 o'clock a.m. Thursday.
Representative Matsumoto.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All right, all those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. The House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. Thursday.